The Eagles' defensive line has a major challenge this year, as staples of the past are now gone, forcing the young talent to step up in a big way. So to find out what we can expect from the Eagles' front four, I sat down with Eagles defensive tackle Moro Ojomo to hear why he thinks this could be his breakout season, why Jalen Carter is probably going to dominate in a big way in year two, and even his thoughts on the media attacking Jalen Hurts this week. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. When the Birds drafted Texas defensive tackle Moro Ojomo in the 7th round of the 2023 NFL Draft, I think many didn't really think much of the selection. I mean, just 2 days prior, the Eagles did add the defensive tackle in the draft by selecting Georgia's Jalen Carter, and even added another defensive lineman 22 picks later in the same first round with the selection of Nolan Smith. Plus, how much playing time could a 7th round defensive tackle actually get on a roster that already had Jordan Davis and Fletcher Cox and Milton Williams? But despite the lack of external media attention, Ojomo was turning heads inside the Eagles organization, with even teammates like Jordan Mailata giving the then scout team player some really high praise behind the scenes. Fast forward now to this season, though, and Ojomo's role in the Birds' defense is about to change in a really big way. Gone are the stable legends along the defensive line, and in comes a brand new coaching staff with a coordinator hell-bent on developing number 72 into an impactful player on the Birds' defensive line. And with training camp fast approaching, I wanted to get Ojomo's thoughts on all of his plans for the upcoming season in Philadelphia. I asked a bunch of questions in this interview, asking Moro what it takes to be a real good defensive tackle in year two, how does Vic Fangio differ from the defense last year, what is Clint Hurt like playing under, at least so far during OTAs and minicamp, but I also asked him about Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and Jalen Hurts as well. His answer on that towards the end of the interview I thought was fascinating. I hope you guys enjoy. Oh, and quick side note, this isn't the last Eagle player interview I'm going to have on my show or Josh's show. He had Isaiah Rodgers on his show yesterday. I had Zach McPherson a couple of days ago. We have a lot more planned, including an absolute stud, potentially. Waiting to lock that down sometime next week. If you guys go ahead and subscribe, you'll be one of the first to go ahead and see that interview. I'm going to try to find a way to get some of my subscribers to ask some questions that I then vocalize to the next player that we interview. So subscribe down below. I'm so close to 54,000 subs. Hit that red button. Let's go ahead and jump into the interview today. I want to kind of start back at the very beginning. Coming out of UT, a later round draft pick. I am curious though, how much interest did the Eagles actually show in that whole pre-draft process? Like, were you surprised to find out that you were going to Philly?
I think it was a bit of a surprise, but I'm excited. I like the city of Philadelphia, and I think it was a cool spot to land at. I had a couple interviews with the Eagles, but I mean, they say the pre-draft, you don't really know anything. You know, sometimes teams that like you don't necessarily talk to you, so.
In terms of getting into exactly what happened in year one for you, I think every single rookie has sort of a, welcome to the NFL moment, a moment where whether it's training camp or sitting in a bunch of meetings or during an actual NFL game where it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm actually in the NFL versus being at UT and in college. Do you have a story in terms of your welcome to the actual NFL moment from last year?
I don't have a specific story that comes to mind. I do think that UT going to like a very big program, the fans, just the fame around UT kind of prepares you well for the NFL. I would say that one thing you do realize being in the NFL is how great each athlete is, respectively. So I think it's been cool to see guys in the weight room just put up absurd things, or, people that are big, tall, freakishly strong, quick, all these unique attributes that certain people have.
One of the first couple of games you get into, you're getting a couple snaps here and there, obviously during preseason and then during the actual NFL games as well. But scout team is something that I think a lot of Eagle fans don't think a lot about. We're worried about what's happening on every given Sunday, and yet you were a big part of the Eagles scout team last year. You earned back-to-back Eagles scout team player of the weeks in weeks 5 and 6. Give Eagle fans a little insight into what it looks like from a day-to-day basis for you, at least last year, working through scout team and how you can benefit the team in that way.
Yeah, I think one thing you'll look at when you see Philadelphia as an organization is that they do a really great job of developing their players. And, I was fortunate enough to go versus, I think everyone should think, the best offensive line in the NFL, right? So to be able to give those guys a great look and prepare them for their upcoming game week in and week out not only helps those guys, but also helps me. And I think I just went into practice every day trying to become a better player. And if I can do great things versus these guys, there's no one in the NFL that I can't do great things versus.
You mentioned going against, the best offensive line in football. I want to read this quote that I found from Jordan Mailata last year. He said, "I love Mo. I love that man. He's an effing bastard when it comes to the scout team. That man's relentless, and it's a credit to why we are the way that we are." And he goes on to talk about how smart you are, how technique-driven, and how great you were going against him each and every single week. What do you kind of take away from hearing Jordan Mailata say something like that at that point when you were just a rookie coming into the NFL?
I think that, Jordan is a tremendous guy. I think Jordan's got a really cool story and a really cool growth he has shown in the NFL. I think I look up to him, and want to do something similar that he's done. So, first of all, like anything that Jordan says to me just has a ton of respect and a ton of gratitude. And I would just say that, that it feels good, but it also just reaffirms for me to keep working hard, and keep grinding for what I want to achieve.
I think year two in the NFL definitely was where a lot of players start to feel a lot more comfortable. Year one can be a little overwhelming. You mentioned playing against all these great players all of a sudden, despite being at a great program like UT. What is different about Moro Ojomo heading into year two than what you would say it was last year during your rookie season?
I think I'm just more determined, and I think that I want to take big steps. I think when I look at my career and just football period, I've always taken ginormous steps season to season, and I don't ever want to be stalemated. So it's taking a huge step and just showing that I can be a very dominant player in this league.
What's one area where you feel like you've dramatically improved from last year? Run stopping, pass rush moves. Is there an area that's should be dramatically improved in your eyes?
I think everything, I think that it's gonna be a great season.
Okay, so this season I really was excited because I got to talk to your teammate yesterday, Zach McPherson, about Vic Fangio, your new defensive coordinator. I'm very curious exactly how you have viewed him coming in based on where it was this past season. I've heard, I think Jordan Davis say, no nonsense, no BS. He's all about football. What's been your overall take on the new DC in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I would say that it's a guy that's been in the NFL, I think 40 years, been around the game of football for forever. So he's just a brilliant mind. And I think he's a guy that just knows ball, right? So I think that's going to be phenomenal for us. He's probably seen every offensive play scheme, every offensive play book, right? And I think he is very intentional about putting players in the right places. And also, I mean, he has a great coaching staff around him.
You mentioned the great coaching staff. I want to ask you about Clint Hurt because he was somebody that I think a lot of the diehard Eagle fans had kind of circled as maybe an option to join Fangio's staff on the defensive line, and sure enough, he did. What's it been like being under Clint Hurt, again, early on in this offseason, but so far in the new-look Eagle defensive line?
Yeah, I think that when you have a former defensive coordinator of an NFL team as a defensive line coach, it really opens your eyes to a lot of things that maybe you haven't seen, and it gives you a chance to elevate your play from a defensive line. And the most important thing is paying attention to the keys and not overloading yourself with information. I think that Clint does a tremendous job of doing that, and I think you could just tell like his understanding of the game is next level.
You came into the league, obviously, in the same draft class as Jalen Carter. And Jalen Carter was somebody Eagle fans had circled as I think most of us, our number one target in the first round of last year's draft. He had an incredible start to his season. I think some people will say it slowed down a little bit, but the entire defense slowed down a little bit last year for a various number of reasons. What have you seen from Jalen Carter just this offseason versus last year that you could maybe convince Eagle fans that it's going to be an even bigger season than what we saw in his rookie campaign?
Yeah, I mean, you alluded to a point earlier, right? That the second year is when guys kind of start figuring things out. They feel more comfortable, right? So I think Jalen is going to be another year in, and he is starting to understand how offensives work. Just a lot more comfortable, right, in the city of Philadelphia. Comfortable having an Eagles jersey on. Comfortable being in the building, right? So generally, when things slow down a little bit for guys, things improve, right? And I think he's just going to keep improving.
Fletcher Cox is gone. Reddick is now gone. Some of these, staples on the Eagles' defensive line. BG is still there. He's obviously probably the main vocal leader. Is there somebody else on the defensive line you've seen over minicamp and OTAs who's kind of taken over as another leader on the Eagles' defensive line, which is much younger this season?
Yeah, I would say everyone kind of leads in their own unique ways. And I think that we might be young, but I think we're creating a great bond, and we hold each other accountable, and we push each other. And I think it's just like a kind of like a a day-to-day thing. I think Jordan Davis has done a great job of being more vocal and just, he's an extremely hard worker. He's a great guy.
Do you see Jordan Davis? It just kind of popped in my head. The big knock on Jordan Davis last year was conditioning towards the latter half of the year. And I know that Eagle players, whether they like the media or not, are hearing these sort of rumblings. And I feel like the media kind of really zeroed in on Jordan Davis as someone who should be further along than he was in year 2. Does he ever show any sort of, feeling that he's aware of all the criticism on the outside, or is he all about business heading into year 3?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is that Nick Saban that calls the media rat poison.
Yeah.
So you don't want to listen to him whether it's good or bad, right? So the most important thing is just paying attention to your craft and just improving and being the best football player you can be.
You mentioned rat poison. I think the rat poison of the week has been going at Jalen Hurts. There's been different media reports. I mean, all last year was, picking Eagle players that the media wanted to go after. And I kept reading all these stories about how Jalen's such a quiet guy, and they were going after his demeanor and stuff. And it just, all the behind-the-scenes looks that we as fans get into the Eagles locker room is that Jalen's not that he's an incredible leader and that all the teammates love him. Give us the Moro Ojomo take on what Jalen Hurts is like for you, someone who's not in offensive meetings but is still on the football team and around him, versus the kind of media portrayal of this quiet, to himself sort of guy.
Yeah, I'll say that, we're fortunate to have a great quarterback like Jalen. I think that Jalen commands the room. He commands the offense. And just like I said, the media is a bit of rat poison, right? I don't know how to explain it. The media feeds off of stories that are going to make fans intrigued, right? And I think that Jalen is doing a great job, right? Has had phenomenal years in the NFL, and you just see his improvement. He's a guy that's a hard worker. He's one of the guys that are last out of the weight room, right? And those are great things to see out of your quarterback.
So I'm a little curious. Training camp, it's a couple of weeks away. Are you more excited to go against the Eagles' kind of revamped, new-look offensive line, or your new running back Saquon Barkley in those one-on-ones?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like that offensive line, right? Just it's a great competition, and I think that it's just going to be fun. I'm excited for Cam Jurgens. I think he's a phenomenal athlete and a phenomenal player, and I really do not think the Eagles could have selected a better person to follow someone like Kelsey at that position.
I think we have 33 days, and I'll finish with this question here. 33, 32 days, depending on when people watch this, to the start of training camp. What does Moro Ojomo do for the next 33 days? Is it strictly working out? Do you get some time just to hang out? Do you go back home? Give me a little look into your life for the next month and a half.
Yeah, I think that, trying to visit family and putting that at sort of a premium, but then also understanding that like football season is around the corner. So I think I personally am very big on like mentality, right? So doing all the things I can do to have the phenomenal season that I know I will have, right? So just making sure my mind is almost impenetrable for this long season ahead of us.
Awesome. Well, listen, we're excited to see you out there on the football field for training camp and the rest of the regular season games. Appreciate you jumping on. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you.